Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Here's Mr. Kubus the Monster Dog. He wants to say hi today. Today we're going to be looking at a mace, which is actually kind of an interesting one. It does have some nice buffs on it, and it actually has more usefulness in Diablo Hellfire, so Diablo 1 Hellfire. It's actually pretty storied too, because of course it has usefulness in Diablo 2 as well, if you guys have ever seen Civerb's Cudgel, but it's a set item in Diablo 2. It is not a unique item like it is in Diablo 1. A little bit of interesting, like history about this particular item is that it's actually the word Brevik backwards. So Civerb's Cudgel is actually Brevik backwards if you just type it in backwards. It is a mace. It is 1 to 8 damage. It only has 32 durability and only 16 strength requirement. Maces also, Civerb's Cudgel, maces also have an interesting bonus damage versus undead, which is actually really good. Which makes them extraordinarily good versus undead monsters. However, they also have a negative damage bonus versus beasts, which makes them not so great for fighting beast monsters. Civerb's Cudgel, however, has a massive 200% damage versus demons, which kind of lives up to its expectation of the Diablo 2 version as well, which is, well, kind of set up for giving you massive amounts of damage, but it's in a different way. Now, the damage versus demons is overall damage, so it just functions as a massive amount of damage bonus. So you end up with 1 to 8, so you basically just take your 8 and 200% that, which I'm pretty sure gives you, what is that, 8. I can't remember if it's double or triple. But it's either 16 or 24, one or the other. Yeah, 24. It does also have some negatives on it. So it has -5 dexterity, which kind of lowers your 2-hit chance, which isn't really the greatest. And it also has the -2 magic, which lowers your overall magic. And as a warrior, you don't really have a lot of magic to begin with, so it's going to take away most of your magic. The only thing that's kind of a really big downside with Civerb's Cudgel is that, well, it just doesn't really have a lot of plus to hit percentage. And despite the fact that it has a large amount of demon damage, it seems to be almost designed for later levels, because in the early levels it's mainly beasts and undead, and then eventually you get to the point where it's mainly demons, but by the time you get to the demon ones, they tend to have a large amount of armor class, and you need more to hit to penetrate their defenses, right? So when you're fighting a large number of demons, by the time you get to that point where this one is really useful, you need more 2-hit percentage. So you're going to need rings and amulets with 2-hit percentage or large amounts of dexterity, one way or the other, or both. In Hellfire expansion, specifically, this actually does have more usefulness because it can be used in combination with another weapon, and the 200% damage to demons actually does transfer to the other weapon, which means that you can have this on in combination with another good weapon and increase the damage of that other weapon pretty dramatically. The Bard has dual wield functionality. It's one of the Hellfire disabled classes, which if you're running things like Devolution X, you can enable the Hellfire expansion Bard character, and you can play with the Civerb's Cudgel. It's actually really good with that particular effect. Unfortunately, it also doesn't really have any good attack speed on it either, so it has no faster or fastest attack speed. If paired up with a King's Bastard Sword of Haste, it can be extremely powerful on a Bard. But in the classic version of Diablo, since you can't dual wield weapons, it kind of has limited usefulness. It's unfortunately not really that useful early on because there's not as many demons. And then later on, when there are more demons, they have a much higher armor class, and you can't really hit them because you don't really have a high enough AC or a chance to hit with this weapon, because it not only does it not have chance to hit on it, it also lowers your chance to hit in general, which is rather unfortunate. It also tends to be very poor against beasts as well, so as you're going through, you'll find that in general, Civerb's Cudgel is going to do really bad damage versus beasts. It'll do okay damage versus undead, and obviously much better versus demons in this particular case. But the base damage of 1 to 8 isn't the most amazing to begin with, so it's kind of like an oddity. Some of the websites say that even though it doesn't look like a very good item, mainly because of its drawbacks and low base damage, it still has a major advantage nonetheless, as the damage versus demons applies to total damage of the character, not just the weapon damage, effectively tripling the damage to demons in melee. Furthermore, Civerb's Cudgel is useful to sorceresses against monsters on Hell difficulty, which are immune to their spells, and also since most of the monsters encountered in Hell on high levels are demons anyway. However, the main advice is to go with weapons that have much higher chance to hit. Something that the Civerb's Cudgel really lacks. Also, slow attack speed, yeah. That pretty much says the same thing that I said. The main drawbacks of a lot of these unique items is the same. It's like you can't hit the monster and they're not very fast, right? So this is exactly what the problem with this one is it has good damage, but you can't hit the monster and it's not very fast. And these are big downsides, like really, really big downsides for melee weapons. If you can't hit the target, well, what does it matter how much damage it does? Civerb's Cudgel only sells for 500, so it's not even really that much of a seller either. Interesting. I would keep an eye out for this in Hellfire, though. If you want to plan to do a bard character, I think this actually comes out to be an absolutely amazing dual-wield weapon, which you would put on the right-hand side, probably, and then have your main weapon on the left-hand side with, fast attack speed or something on it, which would offset a lot of the problems with this particular weapon. You can also make sure that the other weapon has increased to hit chance, which I do believe applies to the second weapon, because this game doesn't separate that out. So if you had a really nice King's Sword of Haste on the left, and you had the Civerb's Cudgel on the right, the 200% damage bonus would apply to the King's Sword of Haste, and you would probably get some really nice damage out of it. And on top of that, the hit percentage from the King's weapon and the damage from the King's weapon would also apply to the Civerb's, as well as the fastest attack speed applies to the Civerb's, and makes for a surprisingly good weapon in the hands of a bard. I think that's pretty much it. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you are enjoying the Diablo 1 content. And as always, keep watching.